This video, due to its nature, is going to be fairly political. I will try my best to keep my biases out of it. Who am I kidding? It's going to be very clear that I'm a Democrat. However, this did not sway any of the authenticity of the AI. This video is not intended to be divisive, but it's going to be kind of hard to ignore Trump's poor handling of COVID. If you're a Trump supporter, I'm going to be fairly critical of him in this video, and you're still entitled to disagree with me because that's your opinion. All right, let's get into it. All right, you two, this will be the last question of the debate. Please give an overview of the policies that you stand for and why you think your opponent is unfit to be president. Mr. Kokam, you first. Well, I believe that this country is at a real turning point. America is supposed to be the land of opportunity and the place where we can realize the American dream. But America doesn't have equal opportunity for all, or liberty and justice for all. We are seeing the poor get poorer while the billionaires in this country made an extra $700 billion. We are facing a global pandemic and the president gets to get hundreds of thousands of dollars of socialized medicine while only paying $750 in taxes, but over 230,000 Americans are dead. You need a college degree more than ever in this country, but the people are going into a lot of debt to get it. Trump has said racism doesn't exist, didn't condemn white supremacy, mishandled the COVID-19 pandemic, and further divided us. We need universal health care, a living wage for all, student loan forgiveness, end systemic racism, and unify the country. Mr. President, your response. Crazy code, Cam. The election is coming up on November 3rd, and it is no exaggeration to say that this is one of the most important elections in our lifetime. Most of us can't wait for Tuesday, and neither could I, so that's why I created an AI that will correctly predict who will win the election. To predict the future, you have to look at the past, and look at the past I did. I went through every presidential election and midterm election, you'll see why later, in American history. Well, back to 1860. Why 1860, you may be asking yourself? Because that was the origin of what we now know as the two-party system. The Republican Party was founded in 1854 with their first president being elected in 1860, Abraham Lincoln. Ever since then, it was the Democrats versus the Republicans. The Republican Party then is nothing like it is today. The Republican Party was considered to be radically liberal because they wanted things like ending slavery, ending discrimination, reparations for black people, high wages, high taxes, free higher education, and federally subsidized businesses. The Democrats were racist, wanted to keep slavery, basically all those good things that the Republicans wanted, they wanted the exact opposite. Woodrow Wilson even played the birth of a nation at the White House, which led to a huge rise in the KKK. It wasn't until John F. Kennedy's support of the Civil Rights Act that things began to change. Southerners didn't like JFK's appeal for equality for all. So they turned to the Republican Party. Nixon was the first conservative Republican president, but even he was pretty liberal by today's standards. It wasn't until Ronald Reagan that the Republicans we know today truly began to take shape. Reagan emphasized his belief in state rights. He condemned affirmative action, ended lots of government social programs that benefited the poor, had the failed war on drugs which disproportionately locked up African Americans. He appealed to what is known as white backlash. White people who were poor and hated the advancements that black people were making. He had anti-union, free market positions. He also believed in the infamous Reaganomics, which said that tax cuts for the rich would then make the rich create jobs for the poor. And although it worked short term, the economy boomed under Reagan. A lot of his policies directly influenced the market crashes of 1990 and 2008. It's safe to say that after this point, Lincoln's party wasn't very Lincoln-like, but he was very charismatic and appealed to a lot of people, and he left office as one of the most well-liked presidents in American history. That basically cemented the parties that we know today. Now, why did I give you a whole history lesson? Because how Americans felt at the time of the election are very important in predicting who will win in the future. Adam Lichtman, the man who predicted every single presidential election correctly since Ronald Reagan, assessed how the American public was feeling based on 13 factors. The AI that I built is very similar to Lichtman's own system. The 13 factors are midterm gains, which political party won the most seats in Congress, no contest, was he running unopposed from within his own party, incumbency, is he the incumbent president, aka is he already in office, no third party. Third parties will always basically exist, but are they a serious threat? Short-term economy, how is the economy right now at the time of the election? Long-term economy, is the economy doing better today than it was at the start of the previous president's term? Major policy change, was any huge legislation passed? No scandal, was there no big scandal? No foreign or military failures? It's pretty self-explanatory. Foreign or military successes, also self-explanatory. No social unrest. Are people outraged about something, or are there big riots in the streets? Charismatic incumbent. Is the incumbent a charismatic or good person? Uncharismatic opponent. Is the opponent a bad person? So let's run this for what people say no one saw coming. The 2016 presidential election. Note that we are always basing this from the perspective of the party that's currently in office. For example, midterm gains. In 2014, the Republicans took the House and Hillary was a Democrat, so in that case, it would be a 0, which is false. 1 is true. No contest would be a 0. Bernie fought hard against Hillary, and it was later revealed that Hillary actually snubbed Bernie from the nomination. Incumbency, also 0. Barack Obama was passing his power on. No third party, 1. No third party really stood a chance. Strong short-term economy, 1. The economy was good in 2016. Strong long-term economy, true. The economy in 2016 was much better than in 2008. Major policy changes, 0. Obama didn't do nearly as much in the second term as he did in the first term due to the switch in power in Congress. No foreign failure, 1. Foreign success, 0. There wasn't really that much that happened militarily. No social unrest, 0. 2014 saw the rise in Black Lives Matter movement, which led to a lot of riots, the biggest being in Baltimore. Charismatic, 0. Hillary was pretty boring and represented Washington's typical politician, which people didn't really want. Uncharismatic opponent, also a 0. Although Trump was rude and sexist, Trump was valued for his say-it-like-it-is character. And with that, our 13 factors are complete. Now, normally under Lichtman's test, he would then count how many 0s and 1s there are. If there's more 1s than 0s, then the party in power stays in power, and if there's more 0s, then it switches parties. But here's where Lichtman and I differ. He assumes that every factor is weighted equally, and that simply is not true. People don't care as much about the character of the president if the economy is good and there's no social unrest. This is where the AI comes in. The AI is powered by what is called a neural network. Now, if you don't know what a neural network is, I highly encourage you to check out my Flappy Bird video if you want to see how a neural network can be used to play games, and check out my house price prediction calculator if you want to see what kind of homes you can afford based on a neural network. Basically, a neural network takes inputs, in this case the 13 factors, connects them to what is called hidden layers, which figure out how the inputs relate to each other and gives you an output, who will win the presidency. These lines represent the weights applied, aka how important is each factor to the output. A higher weight means something is more important. It learns by taking inputs from all of the previous elections and guessing the winner and adjusting the weights based on if it was right or wrong. So if the number is closer to 1, aka it's greater than 0.5, then Hillary wins, and we can see her probability of winning. If it is less than 0.5, then Trump wins. Now, we can see Trump is the winner. And who said that election was unpredictable? Now, let's do it for 2020. You ready? Midterms. The Republicans lost the House midterms in 2018, so that's a 0. Is there no primary contest? No one challenged Trump for the nomination, so that's a 1. Is he the incumbent? Yes, so that's also a 1. There's no third party. Yes, I know Jo Jorgensen technically exists, but she doesn't stand a chance, so 1. Strong short-term economy. It is clear that the economy is not good right now, so 0. Long-term economy. The economy is much worse than it was at the start of Trump's term and at the end of Obama's first term, so 0. Major policy change. Trump has appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, changed many Obama-era policies, is going after Obamacare, ruined our allyships with other nations by leaving the Paris Climate Accords, the WHO, and threatens to leave NATO, so 1. No social unrest. There have been huge riots in the streets from the Black Lives Matter protests, or if your team wins the World Series, so 0. No scandal. Trump was impeached for trying to interfere with our election with Ukraine. He was accused of doing so the first time with Russia, and just the whole Russia relationship is problematic. He cheated on his wife with an adult actress and so many crazy things that is definitely a 0. No foreign failures. Most of America's issues have been mostly domestic, so this is a 1. Major successes. He hasn't had any failures, but he also has had no successes, so that's a 0. Charismatic incumbent. Although people loved his say-it-like-it-is attitude in the beginning, that seems to no longer be the case, and most people, even Republicans, would wish he would get off of Twitter, so 0. His opponent is uncharismatic. Although Biden is not people's favorite person, people can definitely trust him more. You can tell that he is a good person, and Democrats and Republicans alike who know Biden personally have endorsed him and spoke highly of his character, so 1. As you can see, Biden is the winner, and it wasn't very close. Now, what if Trump would have actually handled the pandemic correctly? Then the economy would have been good, so both of these would go to a 1, and as you can see, Trump would win. So it's pretty clear that Trump's handling of the coronavirus seems to be the main contributor for him losing in 2020. The Biden campaign has talked about things that they would do to handle the coronavirus better, but many people fear that Biden will shut down the country, which will hurt the economy again. America's strategy, regardless of who's in office, seems to be to survive until a vaccine arrives, but being extremely realistic, that means the country wouldn't go back to normal until around late 2021 or early 2022. But other countries have demonstrated that a vaccine isn't necessary for COVID to be handled. But many of those other countries have a much more powerful government, and some of them did things like deploying troops on citizens to keep them inside, which would never fly in America. Usually. So I thought to myself, well, what would I do if I were the president of the United States? Well, the very first thing I would do is create a huge stimulus package. At the beginning of the pandemic, the stock market crashed to one of its lowest points in US history, meaning that a lot of rich people lost a lot of money very fast. But the United States pumped $2 trillion into the stock market so that it would artificially inflate so that people could pull out their money. So I'm going to use $2 trillion to actually help people. The CARES Act was a good start, but it only passed out $1,200, which didn't help that many people. It was very limited on who could receive it, and most of that money went to bailing out large corporations. The stock market and the economy seem to be doing well, so those businesses should be receiving no money from the government. First, the people. A lot of people are losing their homes, unable to pay their tuition, and unemployment is at an all-time high. I would distribute $1 trillion to people in need. Households that make less than $100,000 a year will receive stimulus. Doing some maths really quickly, 71.8% of households make less than $100,000 a year. There are about 122.8 million households in the US. The average household has about 2.63 people in it, which obviously includes the children. This means that on average, each household will receive $11,341, or each person will receive $4,312. Of course, each household wouldn't receive this. Those who make more will receive less, and those who make less will receive more. The more kids you have, the more you will receive as well. The other $1 trillion will go towards small businesses. The US defines small businesses as businesses with less than 500 employees. However, I define a small business as a business with less than 50 employees. If you can have more than 50 employees, odds are you're doing pretty well for yourself, and things like this can be avoided. There are 29.3 million small businesses by my definition, so each will receive on average $34,136. Again, just like with the people, some businesses will receive more than others depending on how much help they need. To help the spread of COVID, we need advanced contact tracing and a national mask mandate. We understand the virus much more now than when we first started. I believe that we know enough about it to begin developments on at-home tests. Basically, you won't have to send it to a lab to get results, and it can all be part of a single machine. You can swab your nose yourself and put the sample into the machine. Now, there's two types of COVID tests doctors perform when you send them in. One involves taking the swab and pouring different chemicals on it and seeing if it reacts or not. This is something that a machine is perfectly capable of doing. Another is very similar to a pregnancy test, in which a sample, usually being blood, is poured over a chemical reagent, and if lines appear, then you are positive, and if not, you are negative. This option is less attractive though, since you have to prick your finger, but it's still an option. This test can be done each night before you go to sleep, and the results will be automatically sent to a cloud. From the cloud, it will send the results to the CDC for the purposes of contact tracing, and you as the person, it'll send the results to your phone. On your phone, it'll have the date, your name, and whether or not you tested positive or negative. Then anytime you want to, let's say, go to the store or go to a restaurant, you could just show it to the person at the front to be allowed in. They will see that you're negative and let you in. That way, you can sit down and enjoy a meal inside of a restaurant and never have to be in fear of coming in contact with someone with COVID. To test this, I ran some simulations of COVID spread, assuming that the vaccine doesn't come and everyone tries to live their normal lives. To simulate human behavior, I again used a neural network. The first simulation ran was how it is now. There's no national mask mandate, so some people choose to wear masks, some people don't choose to wear masks. People are still kind of going out, but then other people are also social distancing. In fact, I didn't even tell the different AI to social distance. They actually did that on their own. So we can see that the AI is smarter than most people. But as you can see here, the numbers are definitely pretty high. The second simulation is with a national mask mandate. Yes, the numbers went down a lot, however, that's still a lot of deaths and a lot of sicknesses. Wearing a mask is super helpful and will mitigate a lot of risk, but it's not enough for our lives to return to normal. But with my plan, look, the at-home testing and app, look how low these numbers are. With a population of 328 million, the virus is basically non-existent. Think about it. Let's say you wanted to host a party. Nowadays, people will still host one knowing the risk, which is how COVID spreads. Now, you can just ask every guest to make sure they show today's negative test at the door, and you can party on. Maybe I should run for president. Let me know down in the comments if you think I should run. Woo! This video took me a lot of time, so make sure you all like, comment, share with others, and subscribe. I guess we will see on Tuesday if my AI was correct about the election, and I guess we will see, assuming Biden wins, how they will handle the coronavirus. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.